Ben Thomas, who is, I don't know if you call him a friend of the show, but he's been on the show. He is a PR consultant, a political commentator. I think it's pretty fair to say generally pretty right-leaning. Would you say, Chewy? Ben Thomas is pretty right-leaning in general.
Yeah, I'd say him as being on the right.
I do think he plays a pretty straight bat, though. But I think ideologically he probably is pretty right. They were talking a little bit about Winston Peters's tweet last week about Jacinda Ardern and the apparent, according to Winston, the non-release of information that only just got released last week, and the tweet that Winston Peters made. Ben says some really interesting things, and I think they're worth looking at, because it's a bit like we've been talking about other people who are putting themselves in the world of the conspiracy theorist. Do you continue to pitch to that people, or do you go back to where you naturally are and risk losing those people? I guess Ben's position is kind of, Winston's going to stay there. He needs to stay there, and he's going to keep pitching to these people. So let's have a listen to that conversation from News Hub Nation, and then we'll have a chat about it.
And Winston Peters has been tweeting about the inquest into the March 15 terror attacks. I mean, what, Ben, was going on there? Can you read into why Winston Peters would be making those kinds of tweets about Jacinda Ardern in this sort of period? It's very hard to understand.
Look, many people smarter than me, more experienced than me, have tried to get inside Winston Peters' head. But look, every time he has gone into government so far, 1996, 2005, 2017, at the following election, his party has fallen below the 5% threshold. And in two cases, that's meant he's out of Parliament. And if that happens again, he's out of Parliament again. He keeps reinventing the kinds of arrangements that he has in government, presumably as a way of, trying to improve on the last time. Here, the worst case scenario is that he's decided he got back on the wave of the support of fringe marginal groups, conspiracy theorists, and he's decided he needs to play to that gallery throughout the term, being a handbrake is not enough. It wasn't enough in 2017, and he's actually got to be there indulging those kinds of theories. So it's
possible political strategy looking forward to the next election?
I mean, I hope not, but that's the worst case scenario.
But what if he's...
Well, we'll keep going with this, because other guests kind of misses the point, asks what if he's correct, and he can't be correct, Winston Peters, in this, because he was saying something factually wrong. But before we get to that part, Troy, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts that Ben is like, well, he could be pitching towards these people because he wants to stay in next time. It's quite an astute observation that each time he gets into government, the next time he falls below 5%. And we've always said that Winston Peters is very good in opposition, but very ineffective in government. And maybe that's one of the reasons. People vote him in for this big change, and he never does it. And so then they go elsewhere the election after. But if he can get these, for want of a better word, cookers on his side permanently, maybe that's a base he can then rely on in 3 years from now.
I mean, this is anecdotal from my side, but everyone I know that has voted or thought about voting for Winston Peters has voted for him because he's a rabble-rouser, because they want a little drama in the political discourse, and they like that he rattles people's cages and that sort of thing. I think this is just a continuation of that. It's just that this is a little bit more weaponized.
So you're saying it's less kind of intentional. It's more just he always stirs shit, and this is the shit he's stirring at the moment.
Yeah. I think he's, like Ben says, you can't get inside Winston's head. But what I think is pretty clear is he's seen a pathway to get back into government.
Next time,
this time. Who knows if he's going? I don't think he'll be able to keep them, because I don't think he's built for the world that they live in.
Yeah.
But can he make the right sort of noises? Can he get the sort of concessions that these guys want out of a national-led government in a way that they're going to remember it in 3 years' time? What are they going to ask for at that stage? I just don't know. I wouldn't want to place any sort of bet. I would hope that he's gone again for the final time.
I find it quite interesting what you've said about like how he'll relate to this constituency that he's looking for. Because if you can say nothing else about Winston, it's that he doesn't suffer fools. If the base that he's looking for is basically consisting 100% of fools, how is that going to actually go when he needs to engage with them?
I mean, do you honestly believe that he believes in these guys' causes?
No. I think that tweet
No,
he put out
I
about
don't
people can lose whatever they needed to lose if they weren't vaccinated. I think that's what he really believes, and he's walked it back to for expedience sake to get votes. I think that's who he really is.
And blamed an intern.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think he's seen these people as a tool to get back into the house.
Well, I mean, I think the word tool is right when you're talking about Winston at the moment. Let's keep going in this this conversation and see what comes up next.
That's the worst case scenario.
But what if he's right? What if there was an opportunity for Winston as the Deputy Prime Minister to have been informed 24 hours earlier rather than 24 hours later? Wouldn't that have been... I mean, that's what I looked... When I looked at it and I thought, good God, you know, what if he is right? I don't know. I mean,
24 hours earlier than he was informed, or he says he found out, was still after the attack. You know, and his initial tweet was a very sinister sounding implication that somehow the government was to blame for not having acted fast enough, and it was completely irresponsible. It was an outrageous tweet.
Yeah. That is one interpretation. We probably won't go any further that way, but I mean, and of course Labor did, or Jacinda Ardern did, you know, the next day say that she had been informed, the office had been informed about around about the same time the attack was happening. So what I found interesting though was the revelation this week that he made that tweet just before he had dinner with Christopher Luxon and his wife Amanda. I don't know whether you can read anything into that timing or not. It just seems curious, really.
But it's always about timing, isn't it? Everything's about timing.
It's been suggested that he did it as a bit of a flex to kind of show, look, I'm not in the box seat, I'm the smallest party that's coming into these talks, but look, I'm still Winston Peters, I can say whatever I want, I can say it with impunity. As the other party leaders, you know,
smallest party, but the biggest focus.
Kept their mouths shut. And, you know, and it is a bad signal if that's how he intends to behave, because you would think that somebody like acting like that in government disqualifies them from any of the high offices that he wants, like foreign minister.
So this would make, well, we've had radio silence on this from Christopher Luxon and David Seymour. They must be looking at the forthcoming specials and just crossing their fingers then, wouldn't you think, Madam Pecker?
I think you're probably right. But who knows where it's going to go, and that's the problem. It's taken so long, and of course, the longer it goes on, people will be talking about the desirability of having Winston there as a coalition, part of the coalition government. And the fact is, there's, you know,
Should he be Deputy Prime Minister? Should David Seymour be Deputy Prime Minister, or should National keep it in-house with Nicola?
Well, he's the only one that's got the experience as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
I always say, and so many people do say, don't underestimate Winston Peters.
Okay.
Well, that's right. In the past, he has been very statesmanlike when he is actually in government. And the issue is if he's signalling a departure from that. You know, he was excellent in the aftermath of the Christchurch shooting. He was statesmanlike, he was responsible, he backed up the government, you know, he really performed admirably, and it's a real shame that he's kind of muddying that legacy now.
So, completely irresponsible. That's the term that Ben used about the tweet, completely irresponsible. And I think that's probably a pretty fair summary, because, and the word sinister, Chewy, that it was quite sinister. It was trying to put blame, however tacit it was, around the shooting on the Prime Minister's office, on the then government. And I say tacit because I guess for a little portion legally, I don't want to make a claim that then could be challenged, but my honest held belief, it feels like there had some sinister, as Ben said, measures to that tweet, trying to paint the government in a certain light and to absolve himself of something that's not even there. That's the other weird thing. Nothing's there for him to get blamed for. So what is it all about?
Yeah, and see, how I took that tweet is that he did know exactly who he was talking to. The people that think there are endless conspiracies around the mosque shooting, that it's a false flag, that it's a psyop, that it never happened, or that there would, you know, just all sorts of disgusting stuff. And yeah, I don't think that Winston believes it, but I think he does know enough to weaponize it in a way that it will work for him. And I almost feel like it was a shot across Luxon's bow.
Yeah, right.
Almost. You know, I don't know what his game is. I do agree that I think what he's doing now is just really going to tank whatever legacy that he had. I agree as well. When he was, what was he, his foreign minister? You know, I thought he did well in that job. You know, he got given a position that was just like, all right, I got what I wanted. Now I'm going to rein it in and do the job.
Yeah.
It was like, oh shit, okay. Awesome. Like I would want Winston Peters in a I think he'd be a hard negotiator, but in a foreign minister position, we had to go and negotiate a treaty or whatever. I reckon he'd be someone that you'd want on his side, but not at the moment. Not with the way that he's behaving now.
I don't know how his fans would actually handle him working on some kind of treaty, as you've said, Chewy. That might trigger them a little bit if that was the case.